And welcome to the Daily Autism Radio Show. We are online 24/7 at dailyautism.com. And this our radio version, our weekly radio version of the Daily Autism podcast and all of our social videos. My name is Mark. This is my wife, Melissa. We have 5 kids, and our youngest son, Cal, is 6. He was diagnosed with autism, global developmental delay, in 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago.
2020.
3.5 years ago. Like there already wasn't enough going on in 2020, adding an autism diagnosis.
Well, yeah, that was the time of COVID. Like we first had to do our telehealth before we actually came in for the appointment.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. It was
that was a wild time.
It was a wild time in general, just for the world. It's unbelievable. You can actually say that it was a wild time for the world, not the country, not the northern hemisphere, the world.
Well, and I flat out said, he will not wear a mask into the building, just so you know.
They were, that's something that they were really understanding about.
Yeah, they were.
They were like, yeah, we get it. I mean, what's even crazier, he had to go to the emergency room at one point during COVID. And he had a high-grade fever and had a seizure.
Yep.
And same thing in the emergency room. You were like, he will not wear a mask. He's autistic. They were very understanding. Even during COVID, they understood that this, I think, it was just, hey, we could make things a lot worse by forcing that. But, there were some things just even during that time that, this group of kids, it just, some things they won't do. Even, when schools went back in Florida, and we were one of the first, I think we actually were the first in the country to go back, many of the teachers recommended, they asked, please have your kids wear masks. They couldn't make you, but they could ask. But not the ASD classes. They knew it was not going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was a wild time, though, because I even rode with him in the ambulance, and then you were like, how was it? And I was like, it was the weirdest thing, because the doctor was covered head to toe with gear.
Yeah.
Head to toe. And every time he left the room, he had to change out of his stuff, put new stuff on.
That was, in the ambulance, it was the firefighters that rode with him. And they wore like high tech. They wasn't like the cloth mask. I mean, they had almost like a special helmet on.
Yeah.
It was needed because they were dealing with a lot of sick people and they were transporting a lot of people with COVID. And so it was just kind of an interesting situation. But wow, I mean, it's, look how far the world has come. It seems like, it's interesting. COVID, and you're mixing in autism diagnosis and everything that goes along that. It seems like 100 years ago. It also seems like yesterday. It's hard to remember, and then it's also impossible to forget. And I just think we're, when you go on this journey as parents, there's a lot of things that probably fall into that category. I want to get to probably the biggest story online as it relates to autism and families of autism. And it's funny because I've noticed this on social media, and now the television stations are starting to pick it up. I've heard the reports on some radio stations about this family in California. And there was a mother and child living with the grandparents, the child autistic, they say level 3. So if you understand levels, that would be somebody with high support needs. So somebody who needs a lot of support. Well, they're living in California, like I said, and their next door neighbors are very upset because the child is nonverbal. So, but he makes sounds, and a lot of people don't understand that. Nonverbal means like speaking English, speaking a language.
Right.
So you don't speak a language, but you could still make noise. So you could still make sounds. Well, that's how this child communicates, and it was described as screams and grunts by the neighbor. Well, the neighbors couldn't get over this child and being outside and the sounds he was making. They've actually filed a lawsuit against the family, saying that because the child is autistic, the way that the child makes noises has basically ruined their quality of life. They can't enjoy being at home anymore. They said they can't go out in their backyard anymore. They have to turn up. I was reading part of the lawsuit. I think at one point they either had to turn the volume up inside to not hear, or they had to leave their home. It was like a bunch of different things. And the mother and son have since moved out. So they're gone. They've left the home. But the lawsuit continues, which is kind of interesting to me because it's, the child left. And I mean, do you want to be compensated financially because the child was loud? I mean, I don't really understand. I think it's kind of moot right now that it's not going to happen again because the child has moved. But and I don't want to get too far into, because listen, there's parts of this lawsuit where the people who are suing are saying, listen, the mom left this child outside for hours and hours on end and the child was just making noise, and it was just unbearable. I couldn't see at any point where the neighbors called the police or called family, protective services or anything like that. So it's a very strange lawsuit. And on our social media channels, which you can get to at dailyautism.com, like everything else in this world of autism and families with autistic siblings or relatives, it just seems so divided down the middle. You have people going, hey, does it really matter what you are diagnosed with if you're disrupting somebody's, peace and, opportunity to enjoy their life or whatever at home? Then that's the deal. And then, of course, you get other people that say, well, how cruel and rude, because the child is autistic. This is how he communicates. And why now would you want to punish the family financially because, they want money for it now that they don't live there anymore? And what turned into an interesting conversation of how did this happen? How did this get settled? Could it be settled? Is now just a bunch of fighting and pointing fingers. I logged on a couple hours ago and I was like, oh, I'm not ready for this again today. It's just people fighting and arguing and everything. But it is an interesting dynamic because you do have people who say, it's interesting. There was a mom there who says, two of my kids are autistic. I want to live in my neighborhood. I want to be liked in my neighborhood. If my children outside are, it's to the point where it's just so disruptive, then I don't want that. I don't want that for my neighbors. So you have to do something to figure it out. And then you get other people that go, well, it's the neighbor's problem, not the... It's crazy. But the reason I bring this up is because as the prevalency of diagnoses go up, 1 in 36, we're going to have more things like this. There's going to be more contact with families who have autistic kids. So what is the solution? And is it these laws and regulations apply unless you have a diagnosis? Is there some flexibility there? Does the court say, listen, you have to be reasonable. This is somebody with a diagnosis, and this is how they communicate. So there has to be a level of understanding. Or do you just say, listen, the laws are the laws, the rules are the rules, and if we bend it for this, diagnosis or that diagnosis, then anybody can say anything, and all of a sudden there's no rules and regulations.
It is interesting which way to go.
What do you do?
But, I'm sure it's very hard for that family to go out in public. So their house is like their safe place.
Yep. Where
the kid can be himself and do that. So, I don't know. He has a disability.
He has a disability, and, we know being outside has a lot of health benefits. We talk all the time about fresh air, about the sun, exercise. And just being outside, walking around is exercise for a lot of these kids.
Right.
They're not going to a gym. They're not running a 5K, some, but many aren't. And, it is an interesting kind of how is this going to go? What is truly fair and unfair for people who say, hey, I'm sorry that you're going through this, but I live here. This is my life. And I can't, as the neighbors claim, hours and hours on end a day. Now, if that's true, I don't know what hours and hours are. If we're talking...
I would be surprised if that was the case.
And why wouldn't, if that is the case, then, it just seems like this would be settled already. It would seem like somebody would come out and say, listen, you can't have somebody outside, and let's just take the autism diagnosis out of it. You can't have a person in the backyard screaming for hours and hours on end, right?
Right.
And anybody.
Yeah.
I'm talking hours and hours. But if it's daylight and your child is outside playing and making noise, well, isn't that what we want? Because it seems like these may be the type of, and again, I'm typecasting here, and so this isn't really fair for the neighbors, but all the pushback on people just have their kids inside playing video games all day. Isn't this the answer to that? Isn't this go outside, play, have fun?
Yeah. No, I know. But and it goes back to as far as going out in public. If you go to a restaurant, you wouldn't want a kid to disturb you. So if a child is doing that at his home, at least he's not at the restaurant with you doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But doesn't a child have the right to go to a restaurant and, eat and be with their family? And if their level or if their mode of communication is a little different than others, do you have the right to kick them out? Now, this just happened in Popeyes, also in California, where they asked a young kid to leave autistic because he was stimming, he was flapping. He was excited.
Yes,
He was
that was ridiculous. It doesn't even sound like he was making noise. He was just stimming.
Well, from the video we saw, and we didn't see the whole thing, but for the video that went out on the news, I mean, this is like a kid stimming. And again, if you don't know what that is, it's just sort of kind of gently flapping your arms. You're excited. You're excited.
Right.
You picture a bird trying to fly. Like if you're a human, that's what it is. I guess the manager had enough of that and told the people to leave. And then she called,
which is crazy.
And she called the police.
I know.
The manager called the police, which is, if I'm the police, I'm showing up and going, you called 911 because the kid is excited about getting his chicken sandwich? I mean,
I think there's like so much unknown about this to people that's why the autism awareness is so important, because people do not understand. Like you're saying, the kid's nonverbal, and if that's how he communicates, he communicates. And does he have a right to go out in public? Yes. Does he have a right to be in his backyard? Yes. But the fact that the child moved out of the house, those people should just drop the lawsuit. I mean, they got what they wanted.
See, that's to me, there
is no lawsuit anymore in my eyes.
Right. Well, and that's kind of, I think that's what the judge may say. I think
it's over.
The judge may say this is moot because this isn't going to affect you anymore. And what happened in the past wasn't enough to, there's no, we can't go back in time.
Is there evidence? Like you said, they didn't call the police.
Somebody is now posting that there's video. I haven't seen the video, but somebody is now posting there is video of the child. So there's just a lot to come out. And, I guess I sit here and think about it. And to be quite honest, I think some of these parents, we're getting a lot of the "we ride at dawn," right? The saying, we'll ride at dawn. So which means we'll all get together, get up early in the morning, drive over there and deal with the neighbors, right? We ride at dawn. I just think that's, I mean, I get they're trying to be funny, but to me, I don't really get that, because then you're only taking one side of the story. But then we're also getting on the flip side, like, just because a child gets diagnosed doesn't mean that HOA rules aren't in effect, and city laws and regulations aren't in effect. And so then but of course that sounds like, well, there's not a lot of compassion there, right? It just seems like there's not a lot of compassion. I think so many things can be solved over a conversation and a handshake.
Yeah.
People don't do that anymore. I don't know why, but they don't. So these people have decided to file a lawsuit, but I agree with you. I'm like, I don't think there's enough to go back in time and say that you're owed something because of this. And I also think there's not enough to go forward because the child's moved. So what do you want? I mean, you want to punish these people. They had to move. You could make the argument that, hey, that was bad enough. You guys made me move. You made us feel uncomfortable. You didn't like our child. You said he was, they called him, what did they call him? Oh, they want him to be declared a public nuisance. And, and that's what, and honestly, for me, when I heard that, then I was like, okay, now we're getting a little bit, this is getting beyond necessary.
Right.
Now,
he doesn't have control over what he does.
This is his communication, right?
Right.
See, to be a nuisance and to do those things, I think there has to be a level of intent. There has to be intent like, okay, I am trying to be a nuisance to you. I'm going out of my way to disrupt your peace, and your enjoyment of your property. Of course, that's not happening here.
Well, and we talk about it all the time. Most of these kids don't do anything on purpose. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Like, he's not trying to be a nuisance.
No.
In those people's eyes.
Right.
They're like, why would you do this? And he's like, this is how I speak.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, it's the smart people are the ones inside the argument in the middle of going, we probably don't have enough information, but it seems like the mom, obviously started to feel uncomfortable being there and moved. But then the neighbors are still going forward with the lawsuit. That seems a little unnecessary. But, we don't have all the information, but everybody said, why couldn't the neighbors could they have a conversation? The thing that confuses me is why aren't there police reports? Why aren't there? And maybe there are, I haven't seen them. Usually that stuff comes out pretty quickly because you figure if it's that much of a nuisance, you've called somebody.
I think you would have had to have records,
Yeah, or you were so worried about the child that you called protective services. Usually that stuff is mentioned in these lawsuits. I didn't see it. I'm not saying it's not there. I didn't see it. And now I'm hearing that there's a lot of video. But again, I haven't seen it, and I'm surprised. So it's going to be... I kind of hope it doesn't get dropped because, and the only reason why, I don't want the family to go through anything that, they can't afford. The mother is an author and wrote a book about autism, and now so people are buying her book to support her, which I think is really great.
That's nice.
Yeah, and I almost kind of hope it goes forward and we get some idea, because to me, this would be like a really one of those big cases, right? Of like, okay, you have a diagnosis. Because of the diagnosis, the neighbors think they're being infringed upon. How do the courts rule? It would almost be good to get something like that going up the system in the courts just to see where we are. How is the law going to start looking at this? Because like I said, 1 in 36, that number is going to get tighter. That's going up. And so how is the legal system going to start evaluating this? And by the way, this is going to be very tough for the legal system. I mean, this is going to be tough.
But I think you're right. It's probably necessary.
It probably just, we need to get something in the system and see how it plays out. What arguments are valid? What are constitutional? What makes sense?
Well, and you say hours, and like, what does that mean? Because like Cal can play outside in the pool for hours. And if he was making noise and it bothered people, it's like, well, you have your music loud, or you have parties and your kids scream,
right.
But my kid can't make noise. Like,
right. Exactly. And so you can get one neighbor that says 1 hour of listening to this autistic child was too much. Then you can get another neighbor that said, oh, it was fine for 3 or 4 hours. But, hour 5, it was too much. And then you will get neighbors saying, well, it was fine from, the morning to early afternoon, but at 3 o'clock, I got tired of hearing it. Or at 7 o'clock at night, It was too much. So, it's everybody's going to have a different perspective. And some people are going to say, well, it wasn't that bad. I live 2 houses away. Then you have somebody live 3 hours away and said, no, I heard it. It bothered me. I mean, but again, you almost need something. You need some type of litigation to start going up into the courts to start to see where we are. And, it's a really interesting, to me, it's very interesting because we are going to see more of these contacts, right? There's going to be more of these contacts where some people just don't understand it. And the question is, do they have to understand it? I think from a legal sense, no. Nobody has to be sympathetic to the cause. They don't. You don't have to be. And you don't, honestly, you don't want to live in a world where somebody has to feel something a certain way. You can't make people feel stuff. I mean, to me, that's a little scary. If we're going to make people feel a certain way, that's authoritarian, right? That's, to me, a little bit too much in control. Is it the right thing to do? Of course. Is it the nice thing to do? Yes. But since everybody won't always agree, and I think we can all agree on that, which is interesting. I think the only thing we can all agree is that we won't always agree. So then what do? If these people say, listen, whatever you're saying about the child is fine, but my life's disrupted and I want that fixed. Is that a fair way to feel? And
maybe you should move and go live on acres of land where you don't have neighbors.
You sound like one of the 15,000 accounts that are writing on there. Somebody said, why don't you move?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you find a different place to move? Of course, their thing's going to be, but I'm following the rules. Nobody's complaining about me.
But what if your other neighbor does something you don't like? So just move away from people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I think.
But again, if they're not the ones doing anything wrong, then why should they have to? And I'm just taking the counter position of this.
But the child's not doing anything wrong either, because like we can speak, that child can't speak. And if that child communicates like that, then that's how he communicates.
Right.
I mean,
and so from a legal point of view though, and this is hard for a lot of people to understand. Yes, the child is, so then I think it's intent. And I think everybody can agree the child is not doing this with intent. So now what do the neighbors have? The neighbors have, it's happening, even though the child isn't necessarily wanting it to happen, isn't intending it to happen, but it's still happening. So what now? And I don't have the answer, by the way. I'm just telling you, and I see lawyers now jumping on our channel that are, it's interesting. Even the lawyers have different opinions with each other. Like they're not agreeing. That's how I really think cornerstone that this could be. I think that this is really going to be interesting. I don't know that this particular district wants to deal with this, and they just may shut it down and say the kid left. We're not going to hear this case.
Well, the child is disabled.
Yes.
And
has an autism diagnosis.
And then when you have a disability, you are considered handicapped.
Yes.
I mean, you can get a handicap license plate. So there's different rules for disabled people and handicapped people.
Not
yet for something like this, but maybe there needs to be.
Yeah, so a lot of people are saying the ADA, right? The ADA Act, American with Disabilities Act, but that, and again, we need, listen, everybody on social media is a lawyer to some extent, okay? Until you ask them, hey, can you take a picture of your law degree hanging on the wall? And then they don't respond. But the thing about the ADA is that it only covers public and private properties where the general public is open to. Okay, so if you go to the library, the ADA would cover it. If you go to, a corporate restaurant where the public can go, then it would cover it. All these people are saying, I can't enjoy my life in my house. The ADA does not tell them that they have to enjoy their life regardless of what's going on. So it just doesn't apply. And I've been kind of letting people know that. I've been letting people know that, on social media, but I don't know. This is going to go a lot of different ways, but if you have opinions on it, jump on our social medias, dailyautism.com. You can join our Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and our email is there. But we'd love to get your opinions and your thoughts there at dailyautism.com. But it's been a really interesting case to follow and interested to see what's going on. I really want to have the mother on the podcast and the radio show. She actually reached out to me. So I'd really like to have her on. And it's weird now because, when these sides have to lawyer up, and a lot of times the lawyers don't want you talking to the media, which I totally respect. But I'm going to reach out and ask her if she'll come on, because I I have questions that are being asked by the other side that I'm interested in. And, even somebody said, if you're not doing anything wrong, why did you move? Why did you feel you had to move? And I think the flip side of that could be because you are scared that the neighbors are going to be threatening now. They filed a lawsuit. They're trying to disrupt your financial life. Maybe you're scared. I don't know. If I felt that somebody was threatening Cal, I think I would leave too. I think. I don't know. It's hard if you're not.
Well, he loves his house.
Well, that's the other side of it, right? Like, it'd be very hard for Cal to leave his home. It's all he's ever known. He's very attached to his house. So that would, anyway, that's why I want to have the mom on. I do want to ask questions from both sides of it, because I am not one of these people that just because somebody says something, I have to fall in line and totally agree. I need full understanding. And I think there's aspects of this probably that some people would agree with certain things in the middle or on the other side. They don't want to say it. Again, I don't know enough, but I want to have her on. I think she'd be interesting to talk to.
Yeah, I think it would be good.
And I'd also like, regardless necessarily of her situation, how she sees this playing out in the future with other families. And she may be able to really offer some guidance of, this is how it started. This is what happened. This is the process. It may really give some families some guidance of, this is how it goes. Maybe we didn't do this and we should have, or we should have done this and we didn't, or, whatever. I think she could offer something. So I think it'd be cool to have her on.
I will say, we post a lot of stuff on social media, but sometimes people do get into these debates, and people that don't understand special needs, autism and stuff, some people get angry. And they're like, well, why do these people get this and we don't get that? And it's like this back and forth thing. But these people are actually, a lot of them struggling. And they didn't expect their life to be like this. And they don't get to do all the things you get to do because you have a typical family.
Well, you're right, 100%. That is a big thing of why do special needs families get certain things that other families don't? My response to that has always been since day one. And by the way, not every special need, most don't. If you look at the stuff, that people may qualify for, extra benefits or programs, to get that stuff, it is like, you hear special needs families like, I can't qualify for that stuff. You have to be 5 seconds away from homeless to get that stuff. It's very hard to qualify for a lot of those things. So you see these people and they're like, they act like, these special needs families have millions of dollars in the bank and then they're getting this stuff. You can't get that stuff if you have money. You can't get that stuff if you have a high-paying job. So what these programs do is to try to keep you from becoming homeless and spilling out in the streets, because the same people who say, oh, why do you get this? Why do you get that? Da-da-da-da-da. Those are the same people that complain about homeless people. Well, if you don't want these families becoming homeless and spilling out in the street, yes, maybe they need help with paying for food. Many of these parents lose their jobs. Their kids need 24/7 care.
Yeah.
You can't tell your job, hey, my child got diagnosed with autism. It's severe. I can't work anymore. But do me a favor. Keep paying me for the next 3 years until I can figure out a way.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen, right?
No.
So you don't want these families spilling out into the streets, living in their cars, because at that point, you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to pay. You're going to have to fight for the police to check up on them, the fire department to check on medical services because they're getting sick, taking them to the hospital. They're not going to pay the hospital bill. They don't have the money. Going to shelters. The justice system's going to have to get involved in some case when there's kids. You're going to pay for it anyway. So it's better to pay for it in the sense of keep a family in the house, keep the heat or the air condition on, and let these parents try to find a way to get through it, to find a job, to make money while they give 24/7 care to their kids. I mean, I never would have thought this years ago, but it is so unbelievably cold, ice cold. I mean, these are dark hearts of these people that say, why should $1 of my paycheck help a child who has special needs in their family? They need to figure it out on their own. Nobody figured it out for me. But they don't have a special needs child.
Yeah, they don't even understand the life that it is. And it's a different life.
And by the way, many of these families, almost all of them, they at one point were just like those people. They were working and enjoying their career and paying their taxes and doing everything. But then they have to deal with this. They have a child. They love their child needs care. And what are you going to do? Hey, I have to go to work, so this child has to sit home all day with nobody. I mean, that's impossible. So.
Yeah, and a lot of them can't even go to a regular school. I mean,
most can't go to a regular school. It's funny. That's not funny, but ironic, I guess, that those people are complaining so much about these parents needing some help. Usually it's just temporary help to get through. Usually it's right after the child gets diagnosed, because then it's like, okay, now I know what I need to do. And you have an aggressive therapy schedule. Usually you got to drive all over. Then the child starts, regression around those ages. Things get very hard, very exhausting. And what these people should be complaining about is not helping a family or a family being helped. They should look at the where most of their money goes, especially local, like property taxes and the education system, which isn't really designed for these kids. It's not the teacher's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just the system isn't designed. What they should be upset at is, can you get a system designed for these kids so that the parents can go to work? Can you make it so that therapists, one-on-ones can go with these kids so the parents can go to work? Most of these parents want to work. They want to have a life. They want a career. They want to provide for their family,
Yeah.
And so that's where, if you're going to be, angry or disheartened or disenfranchised with the system, don't go after the private family. They didn't ask for this. I didn't raise my hand and said, I can handle this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And nobody did. But going after the families and being angry at an individual family, to me, just seems absolutely pointless. And like I said, ice cold. There is a system that you should go, and plead with or challenge. It's not the private families. Most of those families are 1 month away from being kicked out of their homes. 1 month.
I know.
And they are doing the best that they can. And the last thing that's going to help them is angry people with careers and typical kids and a 401k being mad at them. It's like I read this stat the other. I'm not even going to give the number because I don't exactly remember it, but it's a big number of within 2 years of having a child diagnosed with special needs, that the families have to go into they have to rob their 401ks to survive.
Yeah.
You realize when you do that, a huge portion of that money you've saved for years is gone. You don't get it. You have to pay a massive penalty.
Yeah.
What are your options? So the idea that these people, us, are asking to rob a system or take advantage. I mean, it couldn't be more wrong. It just couldn't be more wrong. But I see it all the time, and it is heartbreaking for those people that are going, are we going to have to live in our car? I mean, I just think it's crushing. I really do.
It really is.
All right, let me talk about a little bit of hope real quick. That is technologynorth.net. The CEO of technologynorth.net, Ling Huang. Ling is a great guy. He's really become a friend, and he has inspired a generation, really, of people. He's based in Canada. He took his technology company and totally reimagined what it could be used for. And it's used for employing, number one, it's beyond that, but really giving a meaningful purpose to young adults on the spectrum. They find great employment with Ling's technology and his company. And he's really connecting that group of people, these young adults on the spectrum, with mainstream clients. and people that need to get business done. And so he's really giving this massive purpose for families who otherwise thought maybe my kid would never be a part of something. They may not ever belong to a group of people. And he's created that. TechnologyNorth.net, they've done a great documentary on Ling, his company, and some of his employees. It's called Cliff 20. It is on YouTube, and it is totally free. It's less than 25 minutes. It's a really inspiring documentary. So Cliff 20 on YouTube, totally free. I probably watch this once every 10, 12 days. For some reason, I feel like I watch it, and I hear the other parents talking, and I hear Ling talking, and I see his employees, and it's really interesting. It's just a really interesting thing, and I just don't know, unfortunately, many people like Ling who have kind of reimagined their life and their purpose to people inevitably like our son Cal, and I hope one day he's able to go somewhere, to have a set schedule where he can do something meaningful, become friends, find a circle of people who, we would call coworkers, but I think to Ling's team, he calls them the A team. I think it's more than coworkers. These are the life group. And so I think that's really good. Cliff 20 on YouTube. It's totally free. So check that out. Also on dailyautism.com across our social channels. And we posted this morning. It's the video is titled Autism and Cussing. Now, this isn't autism and cussing parents. We cuss a lot.
I don't cuss.
You have cussed.
I don't really cuss. And people actually pointed out to me. They're like, I've never heard you cuss. And I'm like, I just don't cuss.
That's fair, except this year you've cussed more than you ever have. And it's only March.
Well, I think when I do, you think it's funny. Or like, you're like, what's going on?
Yes. It certainly stands out.
Yes. Because I really don't do it often.
Yeah. And so when we don't cuss around our kids. Yeah, I don't mean that. But I am a serial cusser. I mean, I
definitely are.
It's just who I am, and it's what I've done. I'll blame it on, I played sports at a very early age and all through high school. And I just, for some reason, I don't know, I think that culture is just on the bench with your buddies, cuss. I don't know.
Did your parents cuss in front of you?
No. I mean, I would hear them slip. We'll slip once in a while. They were not cussers.
So your parents didn't cuss, and you actually do cuss.
Yes.
But not in front of our kids. My parents cuss all the time. Still do.
But you don't, yeah.
And I do not cuss because once we had our first son, who's now 16, I'm like, I would tell my parents, like, you cannot say bad words in front of him, We have just proven that cussing is not genetic. It's not. It just is something you choose or choose not to do. Well, that's true.
Solving problems here. In-depth research, cussing is not genetic. Cal is now saying the F word, and we don't know where he got this. I will say this is much more common amongst young autistic kids than I thought. There is a video where you can hear him doing this because we share everything. And, what's the point of hiding all this from other people? And again, I wish when we went through the diagnosis 3 years ago, I wish that, honestly, I wish there was a channel like ours where you could kind of get on there and say, oh, wow, that's happening. Oh, this is happening. Oh my God, now I'm scared because that's happening, So that's kind of what we do. But again, dailyautism.com to link to our social channels. You can see the video. Now, our siblings, Cal's siblings, think it's hilarious.
And they caught it on video.
And they've caught it on video. He obviously has seen or heard this somewhere that's not in the house. This could have been a YouTube thing. This could have been... he spends a day and a half at a ASD program. I don't know. Could one of his therapists been on the phone? And I don't know.
I think it's from YouTube because unfortunately YouTube shows cartoons and then you all of a sudden hear something you're not supposed to hear. You know what I mean? Like it looks like you're watching a cartoon.
Yeah.
And believe me, we have eyes on him 24/7. But am I standing over his shoulder looking at his iPad? No, but I'm close distance to him watching it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you with the YouTube. There are these channels. So, let's say like, Donald Duck, right? Then there's these imposter channels that call themselves Donald Duck. And like half the episode's Donald Duck, but then it turns into something else and it's people cussing.
Well, that's what I mean. And I'm not standing over his shoulder staring at the screen.
It's tricking, I guess, the YouTube algorithm because you have all the things on YouTube. It's for kids. It's all these censors and there's, the algorithm's supposed to protect from, bad content and stuff like that. But there's a lot of it that seeps through. Typically, he's watching Curious George, or educational numbers. He's really into counting now. He's actually, I guess there's numbers over 1 billion.
Yeah.
Well, there's a trillion, but then there's these other numbers I've never heard of them. So he just does that, and the videos are helping him, prompting him along, you know. And so that's usually all I hear is the numbers and Curious George. And then there is a dance that he's doing now, and there's a soundtrack to it. That he starts his day off with this little dance. It's kind of funny. Sometimes he asks me to do,
which is just like rhythm, just like
there's
music.
no lyrics.
No,
yeah, it's just a track. It's a dance track. It's music. There's no no lyrics. But somewhere along the line, he's heard this saying. Now, if it was NFL season, I would have said, okay, that was probably me.
But he's not using it.
Washington ran this play, and I lost my mind, and I just whatever.
And he's saying, "Get the blink out of here."
Yeah, well, that would be me.
I guess he could
that would
be.
It.
But that was a couple months ago.
It's been months. It's been months, and yeah.
He knows this is a bad word, by the way.
But can't you see NFL Sunday? Me sitting back,
saying, "Get the blink out of here."
Get the out of here, and I just walk out of the garage, and you don't see me for hours.
Yes,
that happens all the time. And so, but that's not in this case. So we don't know where it came from, but we're getting a lot of people. Parents who said, "Oh, welcome to," this one woman wrote, "Welcome to the club. My kid starts every morning with a 2-minute stim yelling cuss words." And so the child wakes up, jumps up and down, and just cusses for 2 minutes. Hey, I mean, like she said, welcome to the club.
Well, I took Cal to speech yesterday, and that's the first time I heard it. He said it. She was opening the door, and as she was opening the door, he said it. And he wasn't saying it to her. But
she would know that, maybe.
And she didn't hear it, luckily, because I was like, Cal, you don't say that. That's a bad word. Yeah. And he knows it's a bad word, so he smiles. And he said it 4 times yesterday.
Here's where it gets scary. Okay, and I mean, I'm being serious. Now, listen. This is funny for me because, and damn it, we deserve a joke once in a while, right? Like, we deserve to have some fun with this.
Well, I said it, and I was kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. And I sent you a text, and you were like, well, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, we deserve a little bit of some fun in this whole thing once in a while. And this, to me, I'll take this over a lot. I'll take this over a lot of stuff.
So did you read that text and laugh?
I did, but I couldn't imagine him doing it. So it was almost not that I didn't believe it, but it was hard to like really. Then when I saw the video, I was like, yes, like that's what I was thinking. So that's good. But he's 6, and so this is harmless, right? I think if a neurotypical 6-year-old, I've heard my friends' kids cuss when they're 5 or 6. It's funny.
So
right?
You're about to say when he gets into middle school and says it to a middle school kid?
I'm thinking about middle school, high school, the early, young adult.
20s, yeah.
And you again, so he's saying this. So sometimes it's not anybody's in the room. He's just reciting what he heard.
Right.
Well, think about reciting something. Just think about
bad,
whatever it could be. You're in a grocery store or you're in high school or whatever, and you say this, and somebody goes, "What did you just say?"
Yeah. And
then they say it again. Because if you ask, what did they just say? They're going to say it again.
Oh,
and if
my
they
gosh.
say, did you just say what I think you said? They're going to say it again. It's never going to stop. And so what happens then?
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, there was a news story. This was years ago. And I think it was maybe a movie theater, but a young adult, autism, said something about a gun and was, they roughed him up. But
wow.
I think he was going to see a movie or had just seen a movie, and he was reciting something. I'm pretty sure this was at a movie theater, and they had to like tackle him, and they really subdued him, and I think it turned out they went way overboard.
Oh my gosh!
But he kept saying these things, and nobody really understood what was going on. So
that's why like even police officers need to get trained if they're not.
Well, many are getting trained, and this is.
It's different because Cal is reciting something. I can tell.
I know he is. And so, but imagine add 10 years. I always say this, okay? Add 10 years and 100 pounds. I mean, that's how, and then what?
Oh my
You're going to
gosh.
walk into a store and tell people to get the bleep out of here? And they're going to go, whoa, 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 what's going on? What are you about to do? So that's what I'm saying.
You are actually right, though. I mean, in 10 years, he's going to be 16. He's going to be like 160 pounds.
My wife talks to me. You're actually right. Like, she can't believe it. She's stunned.
Well, I'm thinking about Tyler and like
she wanted
that
to tell
size
me
of him.
Get the bleep out of here. You're actually right. I can't believe it. But no, there is a serious family aspect to this, and I think it's good that we have fun with it now, and we talk about it now because it makes it more comfortable to talk about. But I think about those parents who have kids, on the spectrum and are in high school and are 16 years old and 160 pounds and are probably going, well, that's going to look different to other people. Now, if we take him out to our friends, they're just going to laugh. They're going to think it's funny. But it's not going to be funny to strangers when he's big.
No, it's not. And I had to warn his therapist today. Like, he could say this today.
Well, knowing them, they would think it was very funny. They already think he's funny.
Yeah.
But they would actually probably enjoy that. And I think you do have to just say, hey, this is where, we say the saying, but we have to live by it. Meet them where they are. Well, this is where he is right now, and we got to meet him there. Somebody asked on I believe it was Instagram, are you disciplining? Are you telling him, no, don't say that bad word? And I said, absolutely not. You see, he's a seeker. If he knows that that's going to get our attention and we'll stop everything, then that'll be his go-to. If he's not getting enough attention and he knows that saying that, we'll just stop and go focus on him and say, don't do that, don't do that. He'll put in his brain, in his mind, he's got a lot of these little compartments. All right, now I know what I can do to get them to focus on me if I ever need it. And it won't just be his parents, it'll be anybody.
Well, I did have to tell him. But I get what you're saying. And I did tell the therapist, he knows it's a bad word. And he thinks it's funny.
I think it's okay to tell someone it's a bad word. My issue is avoid saying, don't say it, don't ever say it again. That's not going to work. And I don't know how much money I have in my pocket.
Well,
probably none.
I say it's a bad word, and I said we don't say bad words. And then I said, are you watching a bad video? And he'll be like, no, it's not a bad video. So I'm like focusing on his videos now. Like, is that a bad one?
Well, that's the thing. See, everybody listening, you don't have to, autism parents don't have to get along. They don't have to agree on the.
Well, and I can say that I'm doing this right now. I don't know that it's going to stay this way because it's going to depend on if he is just seeking or what, you know.
Right. It's going to, and
he knows he doesn't hear. He knows he doesn't hear the word often. You know what I mean?
No.
So for him, it's probably a special word.
His siblings are a little jealous. His brother that's closest to him, I can tell, is like, really? So he just gets to walk around the house yelling profanity, and everybody laughs. And he said, if I did that, I'd lose my phone and wouldn't be playing sports. I said, absolutely right. And he goes,
he's
how
11.
He goes, how is that fair? I said, it's not. Welcome to the world. It's not. That's the way it is. Everybody's looking for fairness. It doesn't exist. It's impossible. Real quick, I got to give a couple mentions to our friends at the Original Krabby Bills, Indian Rocks Beach, Florida. Hey, it is the season. That means most of North America is traveling to Florida. The Original Krabby Bills, Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, are supporters of autism awareness. That is why we give them our support, our business. We appreciate everything they do for the community, which is, supporting us and much, much more beyond that. They support animals. Finding homes for rescue animals. They support our beaches, beach cleanups. They do so much for this community, and we just really appreciate them. And I got to say, there's nothing like a great happy hour and those unbelievable onion rings at the Original Krabby Bills, Indian Rocks Beach. Big fans. And I call this, we are in the moment of time here. It's Krabby Bills weather.
Oh, yeah.
It is Krabby Bills weather, so we will see you there soon. But I know so many of you who are in the Bay Area go out to the beaches, so support them. And then a lot of you in other parts of the country, other states are coming here. We've gotten messages in the next couple of months. So if you're heading to Krabby Bills, send us a message. We'll try to meet you there. Maybe you'll try to meet us there because we'll probably be there anyway. So, also the Lift Academy here in Clearwater, Florida. They've got this open house that's coming up. Get all the details at dailyautism.com. It is a great opportunity to go meet the staff, see their unbelievably new world-class gold standard campus. They are doing a lot of work for the neurodivergent community. They have great stances and policies on bullying. They also have programs that extend beyond high school. So they are really a one-stop shop for the neurodiverse. Impressive story, too, of how they got started. That is the Lift Academy, liftfl.org. But make sure you sign up for that open house, which is coming up next week. So we've got a couple of minutes. We've touched on... I wanted to kind of talk briefly about sports and autism because, for us, or for other kids are great athletes. They play sports. They're very active. Cal, that wasn't in the cards for him to start as early. But I wanted to encourage people. I am seeing more and more leagues popping up around the country for children who are autistic. And I got to tell you, it's not going to look like we did a soccer thing once. And it was cool though, because like the soccer ball is not the normal soccer ball. It's like one of those 4 feet blow up sphere balls. You know what I mean? It's really cool. But I'm seeing a lot of these leagues open up, and I just want to encourage people, mostly for the child, but also for the family. I think it's a great way to get siblings involved with the autistic child, and something to do as a family. I've seen flag football leagues pop up. I've seen soccer, t-ball. There was kind of a track. I don't know if it was I guess it was like track and field. They were doing just outdoor events. I
like it.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot more of this pop up, and I think it's really cool. I just think it's really, it's something that's needed, and I know it's tough to put together, but the people who are working on this individually, and I don't know any of these people, I just see these things popping up more and more. And I'm going, wow, this is really neat. And I just want to encourage people to look for those things, because I think developmentally, sports, exercise in general really helps. I mean, we talk a lot about that. You know, we own a sensory studio here in the Tampa Bay area. This is a private sensory studio where families can go. And, you know, we've got all of this equipment that is sensory equipment. It's designed for these vestibular system workouts for these kids, the channel of networks in their brains. And what it has done for Cal is it's hard to describe, honestly. And we opened up, 3 months ago?
Yeah.
And, you know, he goes, 2-3 days a week, sometimes 4. So he's there a lot. His therapists now want to be there all the time. I don't blame him. It's much cooler than our house. I'd rather live there than here. You know, and I think that I'm just saying there's something about regular physical activity. We've seen a massive change.
He's been going since December. And literally, he went from the worst he's ever been, he was getting aggressive towards other people, like the headbanging, the biting, but then he was biting other people, pulling hair and kicking. And I remember him looking at me in the face sometimes, just screaming.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know. It's weird because it was like he was caught in his own body and he didn't know how to come out and say anything besides scream. He went from his worst to now being his best.
Yeah.
He is the best he's been since he was a baby before an autism diagnosis. And the only thing that has really changed is getting exercise, working his vestibular system, being able to run in 1,000 square feet. Yesterday he did the rock wall. I did a video. He's getting so much strength now. But we always talk how much better do you feel after a workout? You know,
it's the same thing.
Your anxiety, everything.
Your mind.
Yes.
It's not just physically. It's your mind. So I saw those opportunities across country, and I just encourage families to look for that nearby. And I think that's something that could be a real benefit. Thank you to our friends at Begin Health. These are the growing up prebiotics. So important. These are different than probiotics. And many of our ASD kids and their guts do not get along. And a lot of these kids have a hard time going poop. That's the way it is. And they have solved a big problem at Begin Health, dailyautism.com. You might as well get our discount on that. You can click on the Begin Health button at dailyautism.com. And I got to tell you, this has worked wonders for Cal. He has a happy tummy and no more issues going to the bathroom. So that's very important with the prebiotics. Also, our friends at Angel Sense. This is GPS technology. So many stories lately of kids eloping, running away. Gosh, we had a big one here in Florida 2 weeks ago. Thank God it was a great ending. Deputies were able to find her. They did great work. But Angel Sense is free. The device is free with a subscription. angelsense.com for that information. And again, you can go to dailyautism.com and click on the Angel Sense button. Shout out to our friends at Fun Factory Sensory Gym. We teamed up with them for our sensory studio. They are the best. Their YouTube channel it's really inspiring. FunFactorySensoryGym.com to see the work that they do, even residentially. They will do sensory room studios inside people's homes. So that is something else that's really cool. Aeroflow Urology. Hey, they are giving an opportunity if you have a child special needs 3 or over for free diapers. It takes 2 minutes. And by the way, these are delivered to your door. 2 minutes to see if you can sign up and get those 100% covered. DailyAutism.com. And hit the Aeroflow Urology button. All right, we're wrapping up another episode. It was a good one. A lot to talk about. We love all your feedback. So Feel free to get online and give us all of that at dailyautism.com. While you're there, join our social networks, whatever platforms you're on, at dailyautism.com.